Any of you work in emergency rooms? Right. Any of you ever visit emergency rooms? No.
Too many times.
Right. So, the truth is, it's not only emergency rooms. The reason this issue comes up frequently, as we're going to see tonight, is also, God forbid, in natural disasters or terrorist attacks or things like that. There's a lot of ways in which the issue of triage comes up. And the truth is, we're going to see tonight that a lot of the issues that we will discuss are going to lead to other fascinating discussions. So it becomes like a whole sugya in and of itself. But the topic is triage and halakhah. We have, there are people who literally their job is like, let's say triage nurses. Besides for even the doctors have to make these decisions, you have people who come in, it's okay, we've figured it out. We have people who have to make the decision. Which patient to treat first? How do you take someone's life in your hands? I'll just give you a scenario. I'll throw it out there because we had this week, and then we'll have other scenarios that will come up. This week, some of you noticed I started teaching a class at Cedar Sinai in our simulation center. Right? We have a simulation center. It's like a real hospital, and we're learning medical ethics there, not just on paper, but by actually doing it. So this week we did triage for one of the classes, and what we did was we went into a room where there was two patients. There was a pregnant woman and an elderly man. And they were like real patients. They have organs, blood pressure. They look like real people. And they're also connected to monitors. They're in an ICU. And you could look at their vitals on the screen. And so as the nurse is teaching us how to read the vitals, all of a sudden we see their vitals crash, both of them, at the same time. And the nurse says, oh no, what are we going to do? They're dying. We got to save them. Quick, get the crash cart. So we look, we turn, only one cart. So the students had to decide right then on the spot, which one do we save? So for them at that moment, it was an easy decision. You have an elderly man, a pregnant woman. Which one would you choose? The pregnant, they felt it's two people, right? It's two people, so save that one. So as they go to save the pregnant woman, I start screaming. I'm the son of the elderly man. No, it's my father. I need my father. No, please, quick. You got to come save him. Please, quick, come. So now they have like this frantic son of the patient and a woman who has no one advocating for her, and they have to choose, again, who to save. So it became very real. We had a discussion. They were a little bit bored by the discussion. Then we experienced this. Then we had a discussion. It became a very intense, as you can imagine, heated debate. So these are real things. So what we're going to do is I want to share with you some sources. I want to do a little bit more reading inside today. Some weeks I try to just have a discussion. Some weeks we don't read inside. Some weeks, this week, there's a few sources that I want to show you. We'll read them and we'll discuss them. Okay? So the question that the way that I'm presenting this is priority. Like, we're going to do a ranking. Like, how do you choose? You have to have a decision. This has to be prepared in advance. You have to be ready that when you have to make these decisions, what is your priority? What's choice number one? What's number two? What's number three? And then each case that comes up, you have to be able to just put it into that category, right? You have to know this. It has to be, shiur b'fiv, as we would say. You have to be prepared to make these decisions under duress. So Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote about this a lot. We'll start with him. He was the first, not the first, obviously, but he's of our modern poskim that we're going to discuss. He became like the basis of this at first, and then we're going to see how others disagreed with him or took some nuances with this. His first source, and it's fascinating. I won't say the name because I might critique him now, but we once brought someone to speak at Cedar Sinai who gave a shiur on triage. And what he said was the only rule, he made it sound like this is the main rule, is this Igros Moshe. We'll see if we agree with all this. But Rav Moshe writes as follows. Obviously, first is, if you have two patients in front of you, and one patient has a bee sting, and the other patient, has a very severe injury, obviously you're going to go to the patient with the very severe injury. That's simple. But if it's a little bit less obvious, here's what Rav Moshe writes on the top of page 1 here. Inyan kadima, the choice of who comes first. Leike el b'mashad tanan b'masnisin the horius. The only place we actually have a source for this, a clear source, is a Mishnah in Horius. The Mishnah in Horios, the poskim though today say we do not follow. The Mishnah in Horios gives like precedent, like first you save a Jew, and then you save a man, and then you save a Kohen, and then you save a Talmid Chacham. That's the order that they gave. But we argue today, actually the poskim say that that's not actually the order of Kedima that we follow anymore. So he says, but that's the one source that we have. There's sources here on the table next to Adam. But really, you have to do a lot of iyun. You have to really look at it in depth. The only way you can choose, though, who goes first, who comes first, is if they came at the exact same time, Reb Moshe argues. The first person who comes, they achieve like a right to the space. If they came first, they get priority. This is Reb Moshe's shita. All else being equal, whoever comes first gets to be seen first. That's the rule. You're there first, you get your priority. Only the second one who comes is much more severely injured. Fine, he could go first because he needs the attention more urgently. But it's all to the doctor. It could be, now he goes on to say, it could be that the decision is based on who the doctor has more expertise in saving. That could be relevant. But the basic principle Reb Moshe argues is who gets there first. They get treated first. That's Reb Moshe's shita. That's why I wrote here proximity. You arrive first, it's your right. Okay? That's the first way to that Reb Moshe choosing. Oops.
All things being equal.
It's okay. All else being equal. Yeah, you want to just see if it's there. Sorry, your nose there. All else being equal. Obviously, he's arguing that someone who has a higher need takes precedent. Yeah. He goes on and adds a little bit more. We're going to discuss this. We're going to discuss the reasons for this. He doesn't really give a reason here either, but we're going to discuss the reasoning and those and critique of this as well. He goes on in the next tshuva here, and he writes. You have two cholim, each one could be cured. The other issue could be, what if you have a chole who's a chaye shah and one who's chaye olam? Someone who is terminal, who's likely to die soon, someone who can be cured to live indefinitely, obviously not forever. So if someone can live for more than a year, that's how he shoots the precedence. So that ends up being another part of the equation. So it's whoever gets there first, unless it's someone who has a better chance of healing, especially if one of them can live longer. Okay, this is Reb Moshe. The first question is, and we'll start discussing soon, but let me just give you a few of the background sources. One of the first questions is going to be, where does he get this from? And also, what does it mean to be first? I mean, what if I was in the waiting room first, but someone else got back into the emergency room first? How do you count first? What if someone was already in the hospital for 3 days, and then they have, some kind of a cardiac arrest? The other person just arrived at the hospital today, but he's more sick. How are we judging that? So it's interesting, on page 2, not everyone agrees with this. Rav Zilberstein argues it's based on who the doctor sees first. Rav Asher Weiss is going to disagree with this. We're going to see it soon. But Rav Zilberstein argues it's because the doctor sees that person first. Okay, where does he get all this from? Where did Rav Moshe get it from? So Rav Zilberstein finds a source for him. If you see here on page 2, I put an arrow there, but we're going to go to the second paragraph. It says, Devarim elu yesh lelamda mishulchan aruch. The Code of Jewish Law. Can't get a better source than that. Shenemar sham. Tzarich hadayin sheyaktim ladun hadin sheba lefanav tchila. With the Beis Din, the dayan, the judge, if a whole bunch of people are lined up to see the judge, actually Rav Zilberstein himself, I'll just tell you a brief story. I went to meet him in Bnei Brak about 2 years ago, and it took me a while to set up the meeting. I had to get it all set up, and then even once it got set up, I had to get changed, but I met him at his kollel. And while I was with him, I was there with my son also, asking him medical shilas, and he has a whole bunch of gabbais. He's a very big rabbi. And in the middle of me talking to him, one of the gabbaim who had set up my meeting goes over to him with a cell phone, and he tells him, Rav Zilberstein, we have an urgent shaila coming from, I think it was from Britain. Urgent shaila dachuf. So he looks up at the guy who has his urgent call, and he says, points at me, and he says, Aval hu haya kodem. He was here first. And he says, Tagid lo, he says, tell him to call back. I was like, no, it's okay. I'm just. He's like, no, you were first. I was like, wow, makes you feel like $1 million. No, like it was really nice. So, anyways, he's also arguing here. The Shulchan Aruch itself says, when it comes to a dayan, people are coming to ask the dayan a question to have their case considered. Whoever gets there first gets seen first. Okay, we're going to see some more specifics of that soon, and then we'll discuss. I want to show you a few more things, but also, so the Sma says on that, she'ein hadavar talui b'misha barishon. Actually, doesn't matter who got there first. Ela b'misha ha'amid atzmo tchila lifnei hadayan, but who sat down first in front of the dayan. V'adayan hechin atzmo ledono l'tchila k'mokein hilchos. Whoever the dayan saw first. So that's why everyone, when you get there, you got to push and shove, get there first, so that he sees you. No, I'm joking. Don't push and shove. But yeah.
But this is different from Moshe.
No, he's supported. He's. It's the same as Rav Moshe, but Rav Moshe wasn't totally clear. He just says whoever's first gets the space first. Oh, no, you're right. He wouldn't disagree with that though. If all else being equal, but you're right. He'll agree if one is more urgent, their life is in more danger, or they can be saved, then that will come first.
How did he know that the guy with the telephone call was not more urgent?
I know. That's what I thought also. I mean, I thought he's calling must be urgent, but maybe they have a code. Maybe they have a way of knowing. Like if it was really urgent, he would have been like, no, you have to take this call. Maybe it was just, maybe the whole call was set up right. Just you have this American guy from Beverly Hills, make him feel good and make a donation. No, God forbid. No, I think if it would have been really, really, really urgent, maybe they would have said like, you have to take this call. But you're right. It's a good question. I thought the same thing. I was like, it might actually be really important. I could wait. But I'd flown all the way from America to, I could wait another 5 minutes. So anyways, that's Rav Zilberstein. I want to show you now Rav Asher Weiss's critique here. Rav Asher Weiss has a little bit of a critique of this. And he actually, it gets really interesting now, because I'm joking about the money, but now it gets real. The shaila that's asked to Rav Asher Weiss in Shailas Tshuvos Minchas Asher, he was asked, he was told, it's interesting, you see how they leave out the name of the rabbi who asked? You're going to see why they do it intentionally. He says, I heard that such and such rabbi, this rabbi told me that if you have 2 patients in front of you and one is willing to pay more, that person can go first because they're willing to pay more. So they asked Rav Asher Weiss, do you agree? And what do you think Rav Asher Weiss said?
Yes.
No, he had a similar reaction to you. He was shocked by this. In fact, look what he writes here. He writes in the wider line, says, Lo uchal lahamin shedavarim elu yatsu mipi hagon shemakira ani keposek mufak. I can't believe that a real rabbi would say such a thing.
Is it emergency or non-emergency?
Well, that's what he's going to try talking about. But this person implied, it just said in general, if someone goes to the doctor, they need a doctor. If someone's willing to pay more, they should have the right to go first. And Rav Asher Weiss says, that's ridiculous. I cannot believe that a real rabbi would say that just because you're willing to pay more, you should go first. Right? He can't handle that. It's as clear as the sun in the afternoon. If you have 2 dangerously ill patients, that's important. Dangerously ill patients. I lost my place here. Yesh lipol lefi seder kedima hamushtas kodim kol al matzavei hacholim v'sikur hatzalatam. You go after the ability to save them. In fact, he argues, kvar havati makom acher the yesh b'halacha zu kama kolim. Here's the kolim. Rav Asher Weiss argues. Number 1, and you see his perspective. This. If you were there at the last class, we did it at the PGD, Rav Asher Weiss had the exact same perspective. You see, it's a pattern with him, and it's the reason why I call him when I have my questions. Look what he writes. He says, how are we going to decide? Is it based on the laws of a dayan and things like that? How do we decide which patient to see first? Look at Aleph. Yesh lahaktim es misha efshela atzila l'chaim aruchim l'misha ein atzila l'chai shabova. First person who can be saved longer. Number 2. Yesh lahaktim es misha yesh yoser sikul atzilo lachol shagam im nashkia es hamtzaim karov yoser shelo nitin atzilo. Person you have a better chance of saving. Better chance. Save them. Gimel. Kasher shneim shavim ba'avnei abochen anal. If they're totally equal, yesh linog lefi seder kadima v'shebesof b'sachas horios. Then you could go by the Mishnah and Horios. Daled. Then he asked another question, the question that he doesn't have an answer for. Should you prefer a child over a person who's very elderly, maybe the very elderly person is going to die soon. He says in this case, Lo yadati makor kol shu lepshot she'elazu. This one I actually don't know of any source to answer this question. It's also part of his anivus. But here's his point. Avalahaktim cholet temuras betza kesef, but to choose based on who can pay you more? Davar mechoarhu. It's disgusting. Ki hashochad ya'aver einei hachamim v'yasalev divrei tzadikim v'karov v'davar shetemuras taivas betza kesef lo yuchal klal apil shikol das ra'ui. Because of this, it will blind the person from making a good decision. Ve'ein lecha zilzul p'kod nefesh gadol zeh. This is the worst zilzul p'kod nefesh ve'alkein kavanas hagon achol she'ein bo sakana. It must be that he was talking about a chol she'ein bo sakana, someone who's not ill and they're going to a doctor's office. Then the doctor has the right, yes. Can a doctor make an appointment if someone has no insurance, is not able to pay? Someone else can pay. Is the doctor able to say, okay, I'll take you tomorrow, you're going to have to wait till the next day? The doctor has the right to choose. Is it the appropriate thing? Maybe not. But there's the right to let the person who's willing to pay maybe go first. But that's because it's not going to injure one of them or hurt one of them by going a little bit later. But when it comes to an urgent case, and as he argues here, the klalim is basically based on medical klalim. What is most, as he says here on this next page, Then he goes on, and he'll make this clear here, with his critique of Rav Moshe. And not everyone can do that. I mean, Rav Asher Weiss can, and he sometimes does. I remember when he spoke here in LA last time, he quoted Rav Chaim Brisker. Rav Chaim Brisker, right? That's someone, especially in YU circles, we speak of with extreme reverence from the Soloveitchik family. So when Rav Asher Weiss spoke at Adas Torah, I remember he quoted a whole Rav Chaim Brisker Torah. He said, "Now I don't like disagreeing with Rav Chaim Brisker. I mean, he is a genius. I don't like disagreeing with him, but sometimes I do, and here I do." And he explained why he disagreed. Okay, so Rav Asher Weiss can do that. Not everyone can do that. So he goes on, he says, what about Rav Moshe's whole thing about choosing based on whoever gets there first? Right? They should be seen first. He says, see where I put the arrow there? Hine, this is on the next page, right? Hine, Ra'isi b'divrei kama gedolim shenaktu deyesh betipo v'cholim din ein ma'avirin al mitzvos. The reason why it's who goes first is because we have a principle. Ein ma'avirin al mitzvos. When you have a chance to do a mitzvah, you can't pass it over. You have to do it right away, right? So he says that must be where Rav Moshe got this from, and that's a klal people have. Whoever gets there first gets to be seen first. He argues, however, you have to go over the first one. Let's say that someone was in an accident. You have to just go. You get there, there's a whole bunch of bodies everywhere. You just have to go to the first one first. So you see someone here, you're not sure about the situation with all of them, that one's closest, you go to them. Right? That's how this shita would go. He says, Lanios daiti lozu bilvad de seder kadima nikva ach verak lefi klalim refu'im. This is his position. We don't go based on Talmudic principles. We have a Talmudic principle. One Talmudic principle that overrides all of this, which is pikuach nefesh. It's v'nishmartim mila nafsho seichem. It's saving life. It's also nefashos. It's not ema virnal mitzvos, which die and go. It's you have to save life, and you go based on medical realities, not kadima. So that line right there to me is in my book at home. It's the one that I have underlined that main point. I'll say it again. Lo zu bilvad de seder hakadima nikva. Do we choose the order ach verak only lefi klalim refu'im? Go after the medical rules. I think it's just incredible. I mean, how often you see post-game, they're just writing, basically, just listen to the doctors. It's interesting. Ella, nira od de lo shayach bazeh klal geder ein ma'avirin al mitzvos. Not only that, but I don't even see how you can apply ein ma'avirin al mitzvos here. It doesn't fit right. Why? The kavar kasativ makom acher the yesod halakhah zu b'vizui mitzvah. The reason you can't pass over a mitzvah, you have a mitzvah to do, is because that's a bizayon to the mitzvah that you're passing over. Right? You can't pass by a mitzvah without doing it. That's not nice. It's like you don't want to do the mitzvah. But that's when it comes to avodas Hashem, ben adam l'makom, what we might call, religious mitzvah. So that's not the right word, but ritual. Of a mitzvah shekol gedra mahusa rak b'totza. But when the whole mitzvah is about the result, in other words, healing the person, v'lo be'etzem ha'maisa lo nemra halakhah zu. So then we do not go with that, and he concludes here, Mishum Kain near da shikol hayachid. Again, the same point he made before. Besugyahu tova sachola. The main decision to make is what's in the best interest of the patient. That's the goal. Tova sachola. Sikuye hatzalato ve'orech chayav k'mevor le'el. The chances of healing the patient and the ability to prolong this person's life. Right? Adam, since you're there, do you mind passing me some water? Thank you so much. So that's Rav Asher Weiss. I think it makes a lot of sense. The goal is saving life. And how can you best save life? It gets more complicated though, right? 2 points. 1 point we'll just mention briefly here on the next page where it says number 2, certainty on the top. And then I want to really get into some very practical and then maybe have a little discussion as well. So Rav Moshe also writes as well. Thank you so much. So, just hold it. No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to be drinking more. Thank you. You want to stand there and hold it for me? Just... Thank you. So nice. Appreciate it. So just a few points here. In his other, Rav Moshe does point out, and it's also important to look at certainty, the likelihood of saving the person. We'll just pick out one line from here. See where I underlined it. He says, "Near Lenios daiti shim bo shneim bevasachas." They came at the exact same time. Hainu kodem sheachnisu echad mehem tzarich laachnis betchila es mishel das harofim and misaim sham yocholim leraposo im gam lechol ezeh tzarich lahaskil tekef im yesh tzorech af misafik. If there's one that you're more certain about, you have a better chance of saving. Obviously, that one comes first. Then he goes on to make another point that has gotten a lot of attention. It gets quoted very frequently, which is that he then says, and we're going to see some discussion about this as well, what if you have 2 patients, one of them is more certainly salvageable, but the other one is going to see that you're passing over that person, and that will cause tirufadas, mental anguish, fear. They're going to realize that they're dying, that you've given up on them, and that will hasten their death because of the fear and the fact that they'll give up. So he actually argues, then you have to switch and take care of that person to calm them down. So now neither one is really going to live long because you're just calming one and the other one is not going to be left to die. That's a sheet that Rav Moshe has. There's lots to discuss about that, and we will discuss more about that. But yes.
This is all based on one person with 2 scenarios.
For the most part, it's going to get a little bit more complicated, but yes, you're right. With one.
It's one person coming into a situation where there's 2 scenarios.
Exactly. Okay, now let's get a little bit more practical. And the truth is, as we move, and this is not, God forbid, in any way to denigrate Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe Feinstein is our posek and is incredible. And we are basing everything on Rav Moshe. But there is a sense, at least I have a sense, when I read these sources, when I read the sources from Israeli poskim, they deal with this a lot. So you do see a little bit of a different kind of flavor. I mean, unfortunately, they deal with it a lot. You see, if you read this Chuvas, the Israeli poskim are dealing with, first of all, in Israel, we know there's a lot of auto accidents because of the way they drive. But then there's also the issue of wars and terrorist attacks, which unfortunately are happening on a regular basis, and the poskim have to deal with them, right? So it's just so common. You feel when you read them a certain sense of like, wow, they're answering a question that unfortunately is happening on a regular basis. Not that Rav Moshe didn't ever deal with this, of course he did, but I'm just saying there's an even more of a sense of practical urgency when you read the Israeli posting because it's happening so often, unfortunately.
Do you know who who they hold by? Who?
Well, different Hatzalas have different posting.
There's no main.
Yeah.
Or who's their posting? Who they follow?
Right, in the Israel, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
So I assume that they have a certain protocol for this.
Right. And there are Sfarim. There are Sfarim out there that the official Hatzalah. Yeah, it's a good question. I think Rav Zilberstein might be actually one of the main poskim that they go to.
Okay.
I think so. So listen to this, because this is interesting, because what we're going to read now is actually a doctor asking a question, and then the confirmation, possibly, I won't give away the answer, if this is appropriate. So if you turn to where it says page 66 on the top, this is from Shiur Torah L'Rofim, Rav Zilberstein's new sefer, 5-volume, maybe a 6-volume sefer on medical halacha. I actually attended that class. It's a class he gives at the hospital Weiner in Bnei Brak. and they published, it's all the questions that the doctors really asked. He gave his truvas, they published it. And this question came from an a first responder in Israel. And what basically he was telling Rav Zilberstein, here's how we do it in Israel. Here's how the system we've come up with when we respond to terrorist attacks. And they wanted to know from him, is this okay, or should we make adjustments to our system? Here's what he explains. It's a very interesting system. We don't need to read the whole thing. We can just read that one paragraph right. But do you have an arrow there? Okay, good. I don't know what's in my notes and what it is. Okay, he says, Hagisha harifuit hamikubelet. The way that we practice medicine right now with this is kovad ki biglal machzor bekoach adam. We don't have unlimited resources. Yesh letapel tchila benifgayim asher b'ma'amatz katan efshar yeh latzilam. That there's a small chance, the smallest amount of work that it takes to save them, right? The least amount of work. In other words, ve'elu hanifgayim asher letzorach shipur matzavam yinatel zman rav mi'atzevet refui. Those who will take a lot of work to save, meaning those who are very severely injured, and I'm going to have to work very hard for a long time to save their lives. Tipulam yidcha ad she'atzevet harefui yitpaneh. They are going to have to wait until we have time. Seems unfair, no? And in fact, this often means they're going to die. So in other words, so far right now, what you have is some people who need immediate medical attention. But it's not serious. You can handle it. And then you also have a couple people who will die if you don't go to them now, but you're going to have to do all kinds of resuscitative efforts, and it's going to take a lot of work. He's saying that they leave the people that need a lot of work and go to the people that need a medium amount of work. He goes on. We'll discuss in a second. So we're going to the middle category. The people that are lightly injured, obviously even if it's severe injury, but it's relatively light injury, leave them. V'akashim, and the people who are very severely injured, yidche, leave them. The beinonim, you take them. Why might this be the preferred approach?
Save the most.
Exactly. The highest number possible. Hatzalat harabim. It's going to end, if you have to spend a lot of time on one person, that's a lot of other people you won't get to. So they're trying to figure out what will take the least amount of resources, the least amount of time. Adam, did you have a... So that's the idea. It's interesting, you know, Dr. Goldenberg?
I mean, how does triage normally work? Unless I'm mistaken, don't you assess everybody? And I thought triage meant that you went to the most severe.
Right. That's what people would think. But that's what he's saying is not exactly.
I hear what he's saying, but
that's what you would think.
Let's say in a hospital setting or in a trauma setting or something. That's not true.
In mass casualty situations, one of the most difficult jobs is to identify who's not going to make it, so that they don't waste time treating someone.
Exactly.
So
you have to let them go.
So the most severe ones are most.
You're right. In a hospital, we have it all the time. Someone's scheduled for surgery or whatever it is, and someone's worse off. They're going to get pushed off, and that person's going to take precedence. Especially in a hospital where you have more resources. But when it comes, as you're saying, a mass casualty situation, an urgent situation, we're going to have to maximize resources. And it does mean some people, you're going to look at them and say, theoretically, I could save your life. We could do it. But we're going to have to let you go in order to save more lives. And that's what they're doing. So this is just a question. He's just asking. He's saying to Rav Zilberstein, and as you're confirming, that this is the way it's done. But he wants to know now, Rav Zilberstein, this is what we do. Is this right? Are we right about this? So here's his answer. Bottom of the page. Tshuva l'she'ela'af. And this is going to lead to other interesting questions. Im al yedei tipul b'nifgayim ha'beinonim. See where we are? If by treating the middle category of patients, Yinatzlu cholim rabim, you could therefore save the higher number of people. V'ilo atipul b'nifgayim kashim, and if you would save the most severely injured, yatzil rak nifgayim mu'atim, you'd only save much fewer. Yesh letapel b'beinonim tchila. You first choose the moderately injured category. What's this like? Imagine the following case. Shtei sfinos hatovos b'yam. There's two boats drowning at sea, sinking at sea. One of them is full of hundreds of people. The other boat's drowning with very few people. Obviously, you're going to save the boat that has more people on it. And there's even a bigger reason, he says. And this is actually fascinating where it comes from. Any of you familiar with, I know we've discussed this, trolleyology? You know what that is? Trolleyology is the famous question, the famous ethical dilemma of what do you do if you have, let's say you have a trolley or train heading down the track, and there is a whole lot of people on that track, and the train is going to hit those people and kill all of them. But from where you're standing, you could pull a lever that diverts the train to another track where there's one person. So by you pulling the lever, you're going to kill a person. So do we say, Sheval Tase Adif, it's better, you know what, I'm just going to do nothing. But lots of people will die. Or is it actually better to do an action that's going to kill someone, but saves more people? And the Chazon Ish Paskins, it's a big debate. And even when this is being debated in Israel today. Literally, the people for Intel, the company that Intel owns is an Israeli company that's designing the smart cars. And they are programming these cars. They'll have to choose. They know there's people around. If they get into an accident, or if they're swerving off the road, or if they can't brake in time, that they'll have to decide. If I see there's people at a bus stop, do I swerve into the people or to the motorcycle? They have to make ethical decisions. And they actually have poskim who they're consulting with. And they have to make these decisions, and then they're trying to decide, do we paskin based on the Chazon Ish? Not everyone agrees. The Chazon Ish said the action of pulling the lever to divert, it's based on, there's a Gemara about diverting an arrow, that it actually is proper because it's not an act of killing that one person, it's an act of saving the many. Hatzalah to Rabbi. So it's an act of saving, even though it's also killing. But since it's an act of saving, it could be permissible. Could be. He leaves it as it could be. And some disagree. But anyways, he quotes that as well, Rav Zilberstein, as a source for this, that it's better to save the many, middle category, in a trauma situation than to go directly for the most severely injured. He gives another reason. Let's say it was just two people. Imagine this case. It's not the many versus the few. It's just two people. Echad kashe v'asheni beinoni. One severely injured, one moderate. The safek lo im yatzliach lahatzilat hakashe. You're not sure you can save the severely injured. Ve'ilu asa beinoni barur sheyuchal lahatzilat im yitapa bo miyad. If you save the moderately injured right away, you could save him. So it's a matter of safek. You're not totally sure. Gam b'zeh yesh lahaktim et beinoni. Even in this case, prefer the moderately injured. V'raya lekach mi'anivsak b'mishnah brura, because it says if there's a fire in a house, v'nichladu bo shnei anashim, and two people are caught in the house, and you can go in and you can save one person. Echad bari ve'echad mesukan. One is very in danger, and one of them's safe, relatively safe. They're alive. V'enev sharos hatzil et shnei. You can't save both of them. Yakti mesabari. First save the one who you know you can for sure save, and then save the other one. He believes that this is another source for this, and therefore Rav Zilberstein, and as we're going to see, or if we don't have a chance to see them, I'll just tell you, other poskim as well endorse this approach that has become popular and preferred in the field. Of letting the very severely ill die, ignoring also the moderately injured or the very minorly injured, and going for the middle category in the effort to save as many as possible. Interesting, no? But it becomes the point here is Hatzalat HaRabbi, saving the many. The goal is if you can save as many as possible. That's the underlying principle here, the theme, the goal. Yeah? Yes?
I was just going to comment about the trolley example
Yes.
you gave. There's a show on YouTube TV called Mind Fields, and they did an episode where they set up that exact experiment because it's easy for people to say, in theory, yeah, I pull the lever and kill the one instead of the many.
Yeah.
But they put them in a situation where they actually had to do it.
Much harder.
The reactions were not what. I mean, they would think they would do it, but either they couldn't, or they couldn't get themselves to do it, or
Interesting.
they were afraid to do it.
Right.
It was very interesting.
Interesting. Unlike the video you sent me, Adam, right? Remember the little kid? He sent the trying to get the most people, but he was just a little baby. But that's interesting, fascinating. Yep. In the real world, it's different. the challenge with all of this is that you're trying to prepare yourself for emergencies. But, it's like, I remember I was once talking to a security guard, like a Secret Service type of security guard. And I was talking to him about how boring his job is. We were just talking about how it was like, he's like undercover security. And he has to sit and wait for nothing to happen for hours and hours and hours, usually all night or things like that. And I was talking to him about it. He said, how we train is that our supervisors from time to time will like launch an attack against us. And the idea is we have to be ready because 99% of our lives are doing absolutely nothing. But the second when we're needed is the second our whole training is for. And you have to be able to act under pressure, with the stress and the emotions of the moment and make that decision. So what we're doing here is we're trying to figure out, in a calm time, Thursday night, sitting in shul, think about it. And I hope is that once you think about these ideas, that actually in the heat of the moment, you would be able to apply these principles. He goes on with a few other fascinating things, and then I'll show you one other principle. We'll discuss a little bit, and we'll conclude there. So just a few other very interesting points. Another issue that comes up. See where I put the little like 7-looking thing lower on the page? The other issue. This is the issue of what if you begin, this is still on page 67. What if you begin working on someone? Is it ever allowed? Let's say you're working on one person, and you realize either this person's not going to make it, or that you realize, I went to this one person, but I should have gone to them. I could have saved more if I went to those people. Can you ever stop treatment on one and allow them to die? So one thing, you have to go to them in the first place. But what if you're already trying to save their life? Can you withdraw? Right? Usually we say we don't allow withdrawing of interventions. You can withhold, but not withdraw. We usually don't allow people to extubate and withdraw things that will cause death immediately as a result. Is that ever allowed? So this is the next issue we need to discuss a little bit. So he goes on. Mistaber yoser she'ein la'azov et hatipo b'nifka kasha. If you've already gone, though, to the very severely injured, you can't pull back. You can't stop and now cause them to die. Now he goes back and uses these principles that Rav Asher Weiss had critiqued before. He says, no, once you're already doing it, you can't pull back. Osik b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah. Even though there's more people you could save, you're already saving one life. You might have made the wrong choice, but you need to continue with that choice that you've made. Yes?
Yeah, but most of the time when you're faced with these situations, you can't make the decision until you begin to get involved with the situation.
Right, you need to get a little bit more involved to know, yes.
What is Benoni or what is.
Good.
So you ultimately will have to leave the situation.
Yes.
After the examination.
Very good. Very good. It's not so black and white. You might get in there and then you see, it's not that I made the wrong decision. Now I know what the right decision is. I couldn't have known before until I got involved. Right, good. Very good. So we're getting there. So then he goes on. Normally we say, even if you're doing a small mitzvah and a bigger mitzvah comes, you can't leave the small one to do the big one. Fine. But then go down to the next paragraph. Ulam. However, if you leave that one patient, you'll be able to save many lives. The principle of Hatzalas Harabim, of saving the many, is going to override everything else. So exactly as you're saying, it's a little bit for a different reason than you're saying, but still, he's going to say, if you now realize that you should have saved, if you leave this one to die, you can save more. Saving more is a bigger principle than any of these other principles. It's at the end of the day, pekuach nefesh, and that gives you permission. Even if you began working on one patient, you were working on them. You should leave that person and save more. So it actually ends up allowing it.
The situation basically is if you're in the ER and they tell you there's a big accident, and they bring in the first patient, and you start taking care of the first patient, and then they start bringing the rest.
Yes.
And you realize the patient that you're working on is hopeless, but you still need to help the others. You don't just keep working, beating a dead horse.
Right. But normally,
you can't waste your time when you've got these other people that are there.
yeah. it's counterintuitive a little bit. I mean, just from a halachic perspective, because normally we'd think we have a principle, everyone knows. If you ask them anything about Jewish medical ethics, they're going to say you can't remove things that will cause people to die. Especially with Zilberstein, he's very machmir on these issues, usually, not withdrawing any interventions. But in these cases, you see that you have a chance to save more lives, that's an excuse. That's the reason to pull back from the one to save the many.
Cedars have a policy, but they do.
Yeah, all hospitals have policies. I mean, I didn't bring the exact policy. I don't know the
But what would
exact.
you know what the general protocol would be if there was a terrorist attack or something like that? What would they do?
It's very similar to this, where it's the save as many as possible. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
So they would start and leave somebody.
yeah. It could happen. Exactly. He goes in depth. This is a fascinating question, just because it's. Here, let's look at it. This is one last issue I wanted to see with you. Let's read it inside, because it's especially like profound the way and nuanced. So you see on page 68 now, the bottom two paragraphs. So he writes here, imagine this case. Imagine this case. Shikar b'pigua b'shuk Machane Yehuda. Real case that happened in Chodesh Menachem Av Tafshin Nun Zayin in the shuk, Machane Yehuda. I mean, I actually remember this. Rofe ra'a yeled shenifka v'dam rav nigar mitzvaro. A doctor saw a child that had been injured by a bomb, and a lot of blood was coming from his neck. Hu haniach etzba'o al harid hanifka. He was able to put his finger on the injury, right on the vein. Sorry, I lost my place. V'chisem betzba'o es adam. He was able to stop up the blood. Ad she'giu anshe atzala v'chashbuhu. And they were able to come and stitch him up, right? Hodos le'pu'ula zu. Thanks to this, nitzal hayad b'siyata dishmayim ma'aseh chayim. Saved the kid's life. Yesh ledun ma haya koreh ilu haya rofa ose pu'ula kazos. But what if the doctor was doing this? This doctor saved this kid's life. But what if he was doing this? V'haya chosein betzbo dam rav. And all this blood was coming out. Ach to kadei kach haya matzavo shal nifka hovech mi beinin yakasha. This kid went from moderately injured to severely injured. Ha'im gam az haya mutu l'rofer lahasir etzba'o mi'oso nifka. Could he still pull his hand back? You see the difference? The other cases, basically, where a person is trying to do CPR, they're trying to do resuscitation. They're pounding on the chest. So they're trying to get them back. And Rav Zilberstein said, other people come in who can save, so you'll stop. Even if it's mouth to mouth, you'll stop that. That's what he said in the previous paragraph, which we skipped. And you'll go to the other patient. But this one, you're literally holding that kid's life in your hands because you're holding up the blood. You see they're deteriorating. But if you let go, blood's going to pour out and they're going to be dead. So letting go is much more of an action, right? In this case, could it be allowed for the doctor to pull back? Could we go this far? What do you think? Yeah?
If he realizes there's no chance there.
Okay, so you all say yes.
Depends on how tall it's Rabbi.
Okay.
If that's what you hold by, then you have to go by how tall it's Rabbi.
The only intervention was to put his hand and hold pressure.
Yeah.
You could take somebody standing by, say, put your hand here and hold it, and then go on the side.
Yeah, but imagine, it's just after a terrorist attack. There's no one standing by. I mean, so there's screaming panic. But, I mean, I hear you, but let's just say there isn't anyone. Okay, you can say whatever is Tzalas Rabbi. I just thought, when I first read this, I thought, there's no way he's going to allow this. How could he allow it? You're literally, it's almost like killing the kid. You're pulling your hand away, you're killing it. It's like almost too direct of an action. That's what I thought. I see a lot of you are nodding your head that you thought he should be allowed. I was just like, no way Rav Zilberstein is going to allow the medic to withdraw in this case. What he writes though, first he says, it's not the same. It's not the same as the previous one. If you stop with the severely injured, it's not killing him, it's just stopping. It's just no longer saving life. Right? Gives the example of someone who's trying to do resuscitation. Skipping the parentheses. But not in this case. If the doctor will remove his hands from his neck, he's going to die right away. Practically. It could be considered as a murderous act, a killing act. Kivan, turning the patient, it's like you're removing this person's life. Limrot shehem rabim. And even though it's many people, it should be that you can't kill someone to save his life. He says it very strongly in the next paragraph. Hagatz macha, listen. Adam shechisem etzbaot tzavar shel nifka noz adam. You move your hand from the guy who's bleeding. Ve'echlit la'asir es etzbaot lelo siba mutzdekas v'nifka meis. You move your hand for no good reason. The person dies. Lo nechshav ki'ilahu hamiso. It's not going to be that you killed the person. Achein. However, even removing your hand from someone else's neck, and they lose all their blood and they die, that's not murder. You cannot call a person a murderer. Why? How is this allowed? In other words, yes, you were right. He's allowing it. One, he's not the one who did it. He's not the murderer. The bomb killed him. He tried to save him, but he's not. He sees it's not going to work. So by removing his hand, you can't call him a murderer. He's dying because of the bomb. He's just not able to save him anymore. I mean, yes, he's going to die sooner because you let go. But it's not. You can't say that he's the one who's murdering him, right? He then goes through a number of sources, which for a time you can just look there. The Rambam about it's also, the Rambam requires, if you do something, like the example he gives is you hold someone down basically and pour water over them and they drown and die, obviously that's murder. But that's because you trap them. So you're the murderer. But in this case, you can't say you're trapping them. And it's also, there's an issue of koach rishon. If it's your strength that held them down, but it's not your strength that killed them, you're letting go, but you're not doing the action that's killing. Yes?
So if the case where, let's say there's an enemy, they come to a town and they say, we'll kill a bunch of people unless you give us X.
Yeah.
This person, right? And so is the halakhah you're not supposed to give them X.
Right.
But what if they say, what if you just open the gates? Assumingly, also you're not supposed to just open the gates and allow them to take it.
Right. Right. It might be different, but obviously here I mean, you're right. That would be problematic. But here we're talking about a case where it's a triage situation. So he's trying to argue why, of course, it's ideal not to let the person die, but if you're going to lower the problematic nature of it, in other words, it's not murder. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's no longer. He's trying to argue that it's not murder. So that's going to give you permission then, as a triage decision, to do this life-saving act because they're not equal anymore. But you're right. It's interesting parallels. But I just think it's not exactly parallel because of the triage issue. It's going to lead to another one. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say that in the case where they're one specific person, right, you're allowed to kill the person over, right? If your town's being surrounded.
If they give a name.
I don't think so.
If they give a name, I think you're allowed to.
It's only if that was the example you gave, right? I think if they want a specific person, right, you're allowed to.
Oh, yeah, they say it's just this one.
It's
Right.
only if they just want a general person.
Right,
If you're not
yes.
allowed to. And that's probably the same principle. It's to save as most lives as possible. Because if you give them a general person,
Instead of killing
you're
the whole
gonna take
city.
another general person,
Right.
another general person, you're going to end up with many lives lost.
Right, good.
Isn't that
Yes.
whose blood is redder? You
Well,
can't-
yeah.
you
Yeah,
can't
it's a big
decide.
that question. In fact, he discusses it right here. We skipped that paragraph, but ends up being part of the discussion. Right. Yep. He has, just to point out to you, we won't go into it now because we're going to wrap up in a minute, but I just want to share with you one other important issue. But he has a whole, interesting, if you look at footnote 3 there, a discussion about how does this relate then to extubation, to removing the respirator. Do we argue that removing a respirator is like murdering, is like removing the hand, or is it, is it like murdering, or is it just like moving the hand in this case? And he has a fascinating exploration of that in footnote 3, something to be aware of. Yeah, he makes a few other interesting points here on page 70, but he concludes there. If you just go to his conclusion on page 70 in the middle, I think I put a little circle, kind of like a parenthesis around it. It says, L'orzos, according to all this, Harof v'ameser esespao v'adam niger hachutza v'ames. The doctor removes his hand. Patur. Mishum shelo asa maisa begufa shalom ptsua. He didn't actually cause injury in the ptsua, in the injured person. El arak hesiritz ba'o, just moves his hand. Ulai ga also efshar lepatro mimisa. Also, you can say it's not murder. Gam mishum shadam hayotzu mumemis. The blood that's coming out. Hu koach sheni v'lo koach harishon. He's dying because he's losing blood. He's not dying because of an action that you're doing to him to kill him. In other words, the doctor is not doing an action. So. So he allows it. If you see where I put the little star down there, that's the kind of summary where he he allows this for the sake of Hatzalat HaRabim, of saving as many lives as possible. Rav Asher Weiss, come back to one more Rav Asher Weiss tshuva. The truth is, the most important thing he says here, he disagrees with some of the other principles we've mentioned before, specifically with the whole issue of whoever gets there first, but we've already dealt with that. If you look at, see on the left-hand column there's a dalet on the top of the page. On the left-hand column, I have a little squiggly line. He says, you can move a patient from the emergency room to save another patient. Obviously, you can't withdraw things, but you can remove him. Disagreeing with Rav Moshe, he basically argues, his argument is that Rav Moshe felt that once a patient is there, he has acquired the space. And Rav Asher Weiss argues that he hasn't acquired the space. People in hospitals are constantly moving around. Just because you're there first doesn't mean you have any kind of right to the space, which Rav Moshe seemed to argue. And also Rav Moshe's argument about not letting someone think that they're going to die, so therefore going to the patient who's going to get scared. He says, you have to treat him in a way that's compassionate and careful, but you still obviously save the life of the person that's salvageable, even if it's going to scare someone else when they realize that you're passing over them.
It didn't sound like in Moshe's tshuva he was talking about allocation of resources.
No, not at all.
Which is a different issue.
Right.
Which is why in mass casualty, when you have resources that aren't enough, that you have to make decisions in a different fashion.
Right.
So I don't think the two are necessarily a contradiction to each other.
Okay. But he feels that part of Rav Moshe's concern was, because he was trying to figure out, why does Rav Moshe feel that just the fact that one patient is there first, the doctor has to go to them first? Where do they get that right from? There's some kind of schus they have of having been in the space. And Rav Asher is just trying to argue hospitals don't work that way. It's not, you don't get the right just because you're in the space. You're constantly being moved around, and you have to make medical decisions. No one has the right to the space.
He probably learns this from the idea of mokum kavua.
Well, like in shul?
Sure.
Right. I don't think so, but you're right. Some people take it very seriously, right? They'd rather die than someone else sitting there speed. Exactly. We've met those people, right? So the truth is, these next few pages, I want to show you one more interesting source. What time is that? Sorry, I don't have... It's 9, so we need to wrap up now. So there's some interesting other tshuvas here, so we won't go into them, but there's some very interesting stuff here. I put little stars next to them so you know what to look at. I just want to show you one last thing and then share with you a concluding remark that I found to be very moving. So this is now, if you go to page 103, it's the last page, just the second to last page really, but it says 103 on the top. Just one more issue that has come out of this whole discussion that, and then I'll try to do just a very brief summary, just to put it all together. But it's not existing in reality anywhere yet, but they are trying in Israel, Triage Tzedek, and they're trying to make this happen, and probably one day it will. So in this whole issue of, especially the question of, saving a person who has a chance for a longer life, one of the questions that comes up, and it was mentioned already, is what do you do when you have a patient in front of you that you could save, but more are coming? And this patient does not have good chances. And we already have said, Rav Moshe said, you save the person that has better chances to be saved, right? If you have a better chance of saving them, they come first. But what if the patient in front of you now doesn't have a very good chance? But, maybe you could get to them if you have a few minutes. Maybe you could save their life. But if you're not going to want to withdraw from them, okay, Rav Zilberstein allowed us to withdraw in some of these cases, but how do we make these decisions when we're going to have to, one of them's there now, but another one might be coming? So here's Rav Zilberstein's suggestion. It's not his original idea. I think the first place was written in the Sitz Eliezer. But the second to bottom paragraph, I put a big squiggly there. Lanias daiti is the first word. Nir shegam binyaninu efshar linhog gatzas agris Moshe. We could do what Rav Moshe said. In other words, save the life that has a better chance of saving first. How? Dehainu lahapil tamachshir hachiyah mirosh zman katsuv bilvad. You put it on basically a Shabbos clock. You'll take the patient in, put him on a respirator, and we'll put it on a timer. See, it says just on a set amount of time. It will just be working for a short time. Or you put it on a clock, and the clock will turn it off. Excuse me. And then you'll put it on the patient who can live briefly, and then it will stop soon, and you can either restart it before it stops, or allow it to stop and then transfer it to the patient. This is you see how he's careful to say you have to put it on first that way. In other words, because Rav Eliashiv, his father-in-law, came out against these Shabbos clock ideas. The idea is, you get the idea, to start using in the hospital respirators that are on a timer, and they'll turn off every 6 hours or whatever. And therefore, it's turning off anyways. Then you're not killing the person. It turns off, so you let it turn off. Then you take it out of the person's throat and put it on a new person, because it turned off by itself. Or you keep it going by restarting it. So some poskim said, no, they were against that. But his argument is, they were only against that. Let's say you have someone in the hospital. They've been there for 2 weeks. We put them on a respirator. And now we see they have no chance. So some will say, oh, I know, switch them to a respirator with a clock, let it stop in 6 hours, then they'll die. So the poskim said, no, that's not okay. But if you put them from the very beginning on like a trial respirator, then when it stops by itself, you could then switch it to another patient. So you could start with the patients who don't have a good chance. If people who come in who are the more moderate category, you can switch it once it turns off automatically. That was a suggestion that's been made by many poskim. It's just that in reality, practically, initiating such a system is very complicated and difficult and sometimes impractical, and so far it's never really been happen anywhere. Dr. Steinberg told me they couldn't do it in Shaar Tzedek yet because they couldn't get IRB approval, because they're doing something experimental on patients that could kill them if it doesn't work, and so they just haven't been able to put it into use yet. But this is just another suggestion that I wanted to share with you because it's interesting and it comes up a lot. This is really the source of it, is triage. Now, it's not meant for ICUs at the end of life. It's meant for triage situations to have this timer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Rabbi Silverstein that said that this is the way we do it here, indicating that the resources determine much of what goes into the halakhah of the area. So that if we here in America, for example, are faced with the exact same situation as we in Eretz Israel, where the resources are more available, then the halakhah might be different.
Could be, right. It's based on the practical reality at that moment. How can you save the most lives?
Because he did qualify us that this is the way we do
Right.
it here.
Right.
Obviously taking into account.
Yeah, it's all based on that situation. That's why I like so much Rav Asher Weiss's point. He said, the point is, how do you save the most life? That's the rule. How do you save lives? How do you help people? The best way to do that, you have to figure out. But that's the principle, is how do we save the most lives? So let me summarize, and then I want to just read it with you one last short source that I found very moving, and that will be the conclusion. But here's the summary. So basically, you have, obviously, you want to save people's lives who you have a better chance of saving. Someone who has a chance of living longer. Someone who is more likely, right? All else being equal, we save, if they came in, we save the person who is closer to the doctor. I mean, that's if you're stuck, if all else is equal. Some poskim have said, all else equal, you actually do a goral. You actually just lottery. And then we have a belief that, that's basically God's will, is what, sometimes you do that. But you're stuck. If the next way to choose after that, so it was first, saving the best chance, the certainty of saving life. Saving life that can live a full life versus saving a life that is terminal. After that, whoever came first, it was equal. After that, Hatzalat Rabbi, saving as many as possible. That becomes the key, saving as many, and that this can be allowed sometimes, even if it means leaving one patient in order to save another patient, that we do that to save as many as possible. But ideally, we try not to leave people. But if we see that it will certainly lead to saving more lives, we can, and that becomes the principle of how to save the most lives possible. I just want to conclude with Dr. Steinberg's statement. This is on the very last page. He has a discussion of triage, and the last point he makes First of all, he writes here, hospitals, he writes it like as a matter of halakhah. A hospital has to have a policy. You asked about cedars. He says, a hospital has to think about this stuff. You have to have a policy. And they have to, really have worked this out and do the best they can to be prepared. And then he writes as follows. I'll conclude with this because I just found it to be important. Last page here, 96. Kol ha-mekarim l'ugayim l'akademiyut b'hatzal tzachayim heim migidrei lo talmud adam riyacha. All of this is, you have to try to save life. Lo talmud, you can't stand by while people are dying. Misha b'di'evid lo nahag al pi akademiyut ha-muvaras la'el. But if someone doesn't follow the actual rules, we just gave a whole bunch of rules. Let's say it happens and someone saves a life, but they could have saved more. They could have done it more according to the halachos that we learned today. They didn't follow those. It was just too crazy. They couldn't remember what we learned. They didn't, it was just too emotional, right? They didn't follow the rules. So, lo avar al isser ritzicha. Don't worry, they're not considered a murderer because they didn't do it the right way. Ki besofa shel davar hitzil nefesh. At the end of the day, they saved a life. You did save a life. V'klal hu. The principle is, kol ha-mekayim nefesh achas mi-Yisrael. Anyone who saves a life, ma'ala Allah v'kasuk ilu hu-kayim olam mali. They saved an entire world. Mikan she'amatzu kol adam mi-Yisrael katan o gadol. Therefore, you save anyone, child, adult, ish, isha, man, woman, tamachacham, ha'ma'aretz. They're a scholar, they're ignorant, doesn't matter. Kiyem mitzvah satzala. They fulfill the mitzvah to save life. B'di'evet is a nachon. Gami lo nag lefi kadimios mugdaros kol shehin. Even if they didn't follow any principles, they saved a life. It should have been probably the last of the priorities. At the end of the day, you do your best. Don't feel bad that you didn't get the most possible, whatever. We try to do the most. We saw the principles. We try to save life in the best manner possible. But the point is, saving life, there's understanding, recognition that mistakes might happen, and we do the best that we can. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll be on a different topic next week. If there's any comments, I know people